Band directing veteran Trey Reely here, but enough about me. But welcome to my new YouTube channel. I've titled it Band Stuff. And I'm hoping through this YouTube channel to help young directors in particular learn some things that might save you a lot of trouble in the long run. You can kind of learn from my mistakes. Before we get really started, if you would, please press like or subscribe. Even if you don't really know yet, please do that for me. Like I tell a lot of my students, even old guys like me have self-esteem that can be crushed, built up. And if you do that, it'll really help me feel better about myself. But today we're going to start a series that I've titled 10 Mistakes That Band Directors Make. And today we're just going to talk about 2 of them. And we'll cover about 2 per week until we've covered all 10. And these are in no particular order. But the first one I'm going to talk about is the mistake of not calling or conferencing with parents enough about problematic children. When we think about the problems in education today, a lot of times the blame falls heavily, and I think rightfully in a lot of ways, to unstable homes and poor parenting. And let's admit it, there's a lot of parents out there that really stink at parenting. Okay, let's get that out of the way. But that is a generalization, and we shouldn't let that generalization keep us from trying to communicate with parents as much as we can. Because I can tell you, in over 30 years of teaching, by and large, without a doubt, most of the parents that I have contacted have been very, very supportive of me in my teaching. And a lot of it's kind of the approach that you take. But don't hesitate to call parents because you just think that they don't care. Because I really believe that most of them do. Even the ones that aren't the best parents in the world, they want their kid to do right. And that was one of the biggest mistakes early in my career, was I did not communicate enough with parents about their children when they were misbehaving. I don't know why. I think part of it was the embarrassment that I couldn't take care of myself. I even think it was I wanted to avoid confrontation. And I was a young director, and all the parents were going to be older than I was. And so I was even somewhat intimidated. And it finally came to me that I was putting up with way too much in my teaching. And it kind of came to me through a student that I had. It was a tuba player, surprise, surprise, that I had in my high school band. It was my first year of teaching at the high school level after 6 years of teaching at middle school and junior high. And he was being a pain in the rear. He was misbehaving in rehearsal, before rehearsal, after rehearsal. He liked band. That was one good thing. And he would just get upset all sorts of things. And so about 4 weeks, he was driving me nuts. And finally, one day, he got so mad about something. I think a girl broke up with him or something. He punched a hole in one of the wooden doors of the band room. So even I draw the line at punching holes in doors, you know. And so I just said, well, I got to call his dad. And I didn't know his dad. I'd never met him before. And so I don't know how he's going to react. And the kid who had punched the hole in the door was a big guy. And I called his father, and his father came to the school, and he was even bigger than his son was. And I was kind of like, oh no, I hope I can get this kid on my side, or this is going to be rough. So I kind of went through the litany of things that his son had done. And after I did, his father looked at me and he says, you know, you will never have a problem with him again. And you know what? I didn't. The kid became a model band member, and I was kicking myself. I was like, why did I put up with this for 4 weeks? I should have called his dad at the very beginning, and I wouldn't have had any of these issues. And it made such an impression on me that from that point on in my career, I always called sooner than later. In fact, I would even call before a kid had even done anything really totally worthy of calling the parent for. But I got experienced enough to see where things were headed. And the parents always appreciated when I called and said, you know, they're a wonderful band kid. I want them in my program. And they're doing a lot of great things, but I'm starting to see some things that are kind of troubling. And I would really like to head them off before it gets to the point where they're really in a lot of trouble. And when parents hear that, they appreciate the fact that you're kind of heading something off. I never had a problem with any discussion like that. In fact, one time, there's a few kids that I even talked to their parents conferencing, really. And as an aside, calling is better than nothing. But if you could meet in person, I think that's the best way to do it. But I got to where I would even call some parents in May getting ready for the next marching season. And we'd sit down and I'd say, there's some things that I saw this year in your child that moving forward, I'm just not going to be able to put up with anymore. And so we've got about 2 months here before marching season starts, and would really like to straighten these things out so that you know what's expected, they know what's expected, and you know what's going to happen if they don't do the things that I'm asking them to do. And parents are always very, very appreciative of that. The last thing you want to happen is take an action on a student in terms of discipline. Talk to the parent and say, I've been putting up with this for so long, I've had it, I'm kicking them out, I've talked to the principal about it. Because the parent's going to say, well, if you had just talked to me sooner, I could have done something. Now, you may or may not believe that, it may or may not be true, but they do appreciate the chance to at least have tried. And I'll tell you somebody else who will be very, very excited with this idea of calling or conferencing with parents a lot, and that is your principal. Your principal will have a lot more respect for your problems if you come to them and you can lay out what you did to try to help this child, and that includes talking to the parents. And particularly when that solves a problem and the principal doesn't have to deal with it, that's really the best case scenario for them. So remember, call and at best conference with parents of problematic students sooner than later. Number 2, and remember, these are in no particular order. Second mistake band directors make is they don't sing enough in band rehearsal. Again, this is another mistake I made. And I can tell you really the reason I did not sing when I first started teaching. In my first year with middle school and junior high students, the kids that I inherited from the previous director, I had a real problems with behavior with those kids. And so the last thing I wanted to do was try to get a bunch of unruly junior high kids to sing. That would just kind of add to the problem, because you can kind of imagine the silliness involved when they're already giving you problems when you try to ask them to sing things. And so I kind of didn't start off with doing it like I should, and it really didn't kick in for a while. And we might sing a tuning note and then try to tune, but we didn't go much beyond that. Well, a few years into my high school career, circumstances kind of changed. It kind of forced my hand on the issue to make me want to do a lot more singing and rehearsal. The first thing was something that we were performing. We were doing Francis Macbeth's of Sailors and Whales. Again, I'm not bragging. It kind of drives me crazy when people name drop pieces they played. It's like, we had so much problem with Pines of Rome this year. Huh? I'm not doing that. That's just the piece that we played. And the third movement has singing in it. And I knew I wanted to do this piece before the year started, and so I'm like, I need a plan to get these kids singing, so this isn't the only thing that we've sung all year. And it just happened that along with that same time period, a new publication came out called Bach and Before for Band. It's by David Newell, published by Chose Music, and it's still being published. And it's the first thing that I would probably buy with any new program that I have. In fact, when I moved from my first position to my second one, it is one of the first things that I bought, because it's an essential thing to get your band singing. And the reason that particular series helps, and also there's similar things on the internet that you might find, but the key to the series is that every instrument part has a soprano, alto, tenor, and bass part for that instrument. Before then, and particularly back in the old days when I was a kid, the chorale books, you were stuck with the soprano line the whole time, or the alto line, or the tenor, or the bass. And then when you tried to sing, you didn't have everybody by you on the same part, and it could be really pretty intimidating. And so what you can do with this method, what I did, is I typically started with the alto line because the ranges are easier. We would get more comfortable singing when we're all singing the same thing. And I'd have first chair players play the line so they could hear the pitches. And over time, I would try to rehearse it down to where they were actually doing it a cappella. So we would sing it, play it, try to get that one line in tune. Then we'd move to soprano line, do the same thing, and then do soprano and alto like a duet. Eventually add tenor and bass. This could take weeks and weeks. But it had them singing, it had them listening. And the thing that I found, particularly since I started using that method, was my bands did not play any better in tune on marching music or concert music until they could sing and play that chorale with good intonation. They just went right together. And it may take a while. My first year at my new position in 2008, kids had a lot of problems with tone and intonation. But we kept going at that chorale over and over and over again. Worked on it all year. Guess what? Our tuning improved, but it was never great the whole year. So it might require some patience. It wasn't until the next year, around February, that we could play a 4-part chorale and sing a 4-part chorale where it was really in tune most of the time. And then by my third year, things would line up very, very early in the year. So make sure that they sing a lot, because you're really not going to play much more in tune, particularly in the slow, pretty type of music, until the kids actually can think it and sing it in tune as well. It's been great being with you today. I hope you'll see part 2 when I get it out next week. I'll be talking about number 3 and number 4 of the mistakes that band directors can make. Remember to press subscribe and like. I'd really appreciate it. Hope the video today was helpful for you.